Hello and welcome to a very special episode of The Buck Stops Here. The 1971 war has been described as being perhaps India's finest hour, certainly the finest hour of the Indian armed forces. But generations of Indians have perhaps today learnt about the war from textbooks, perhaps from a few stories. The actual nuance of the battles themselves, the stories of some of our military stalwarts has often been forgotten. What we've tried to do at NDTV for many years is to ensure that the stories of our war veterans are never forgotten, and this program is part of this continuing effort. As a group of veterans goes back to Bangladesh to relive their memories in the battlegrounds where they fought 46 years back, we thought we'd bring them all together. Two officers of the Army, one of the Air Force and one of the Navy, all of whom had played a very, very important role way back then in 1971. I'm very privileged to introduce our panelists, Lieutenant General Jai Bhagwan Singh Yadav with 5x11 Gurkha rifles. He took part in several battles. The Battle of Bogra was certainly one of the highlights. Wing Commander Devinderjeet Singh Clare, not only did he fight the war as a fighter pilot flying Nats, his father also participated in the war as a very well-known soldier of the Army, an officer of the Army on the ground. They were both fighting together at the same time. Commodore Ravindranath Sharma was on board INS Vikrant. He saw some of the most difficult moments, the most tense moments as we deployed fighter aircraft off the deck of India's only aircraft carrier at the time, and he'll tell us a little bit about that. And Major Chandrakant Singh of Four Guards has some unique stories about his interactions with the Mukti Bahini and India's role over there. But General, let me come to you first. Your soldiers were responsible, and you were commanding this small detachment, of getting control of an entire battalion. How did that happen, sir?
You see, the enemy was putting up great resistance after the Battle of Hilli, and he was determined not to allow us to capture Bogra, which was one of the strategic objectives of the India's southwestern force. We had been tasked to capture Bogra as early as possible. So at the Battle of Govindganj, we made a detour of 70 kilometers on amphibian tanks.
PT-76 tanks?
Yes, PT-76. These are amphibian tanks. They can negotiate rivers, marshes, nalas, and we landed up behind the enemy battalion and attacked them from the rear. They were totally surprised, although the battle was very ferocious, but the resistance collapsed very fast, and in the process, I, as a company commander with Major Mehra of the 69 Cavalry, captured 3 Pakistani tanks, 6 guns, 17 trucks of ammunition, and about 200 people who were running away from the defenses.
You were on a mission. You were flying Nats from Dum and Kalaikunda as well. And you were on your way back when suddenly you were told that somebody on the ground in the army was in trouble. What did you do?
Well, the FSC called up to say that, Claire, your namesake is burning in an APC. So Don Lazarus, my leader, and I, we were coming back. We had full ammunition, looking for targets of opportunity. So we went in to this particular, save this objective, which was the APC burning in the middle of the river.
An armored personnel carrier.
An armored personnel carrier, which unfortunately 7th Punjab had trained with us in Kalaikunda in the waters next door at Jhargram. So we were a little intimate with them, not because we were Claire, but because they were Army and we were Air Force, and we got along pretty well there. But we went in for this thing, and we found that there was a machine gun post which was firing at them. The tank was burning, their APC was burning, and the troops couldn't get out. So Don and I, we carried out with our front gun attacks, and on the second attack, we got them nice and proper, but I got hit by enemy ground fire. I took a bullet right through my engine. It was a pleasure to hear on RT that Claire managed to get out of the aircraft. His back was completely on fire. They burnt. He's alive today, lives in defense colony, and comes to Delhi golf Gymkhana Club.
So you saved his life. And,
Well, if you can
the two
call
of
it that
you
way.
saved his life, potentially saved his life. Don't be modest. And then, in the process, your aircraft was hit. You lost you ultimately lost the engine, right?
We just lost an engine,
You
but the
just had
airframe was
one.
intact. You just take out an engine, put another one in.
Right. No, but that happened later on. So
Yeah.
so you had to get back, and you had the option of ejecting.
Yes, I was asked to eject by my fighter controller, by my leader, because the aircraft was behaving like a rodeo horse, and the fuel gauge was just going down like a shower, well, going off. They had diverted me to Jessore, and if I had landed, I would have been the first Indian Air Force pilot to land at Jessore.
Because it
But
had just recently been captured.
It had just
Right.
been evacuated by the
I
Pakistanis.
see.
But right in front on the runway were huge big boulders. So I yelled out, runways blocked. So my fighter controller, Flight Lieutenant Radhakrishna, asked me to pull up and head straight for Dum Dum. And he brought me in for a direct finals on a reciprocal runway. Unfortunately, Dum Dum had smog, which drifted from Howrah. So when you're down, when your chips are down, everything doesn't work your way at all. So smog over Dum Dum, no sight of the runway, coming in with absolutely no fuel gauge more or less reading zero. When suddenly I saw an aircraft going around on the normal runway, which was friend Velankar. But I put the aircraft nose down, I know that the runway must be right below me. Made contact when the engine conked out, and I landed.
So your
reciprocal.
engine went dead as you touched down.
No,
The timing was just
my
before.
engine went dead when I was above the runway.
Right. Well, you're here to tell us that story. Let me come to you next. Get the Navy also in on this. The Vikrant, the pride of the Indian Navy, our first aircraft carrier. You deployed Seahawk and Alizé aircraft off the decks of the Vikrant at that time. So the fighters went in, and then there was silence. What was the mood on the deck of the ship, sir, as you were waiting for the pilots to return after their strafing operations?
Well, the mood was one of suspense and a lot of tension, because we really didn't know what kind of opposition these fighters would, the aircraft from Vikrant, mainly the Seahawks, would encounter. So they had gone to carry out an attack at Chittagong Harbour, the installations at port installations at Chittagong. And as I said, I think there's about 4 or 5 aircraft which had taken off, led by Lieutenant Commander S.K. Gupta, or Gigi Gupta as he was affectionately known. Now these were officers who were of course very well loved and all that on board, and what we were really anxious about is that would they all come back, would anyone be shot down, or what would happen, what kind of opposition or air defense would they encounter. So for about an hour that they were airborne, there was pin drop silence on board, nobody was talking, and we were just waiting, keeping our fingers crossed. But after about an hour, the first aircraft was sighted coming back, and then of course the whole lot, and they all came back and landed on board, and there was great jubilation on board when they recounted that they'd been able to carry out successful attacks. And Commander Gupta was then lifted off by the air crew on their shoulders and sort of taken around the ship with garlands and things. And thereafter, we became more sure of ourselves in further attacks. And many more attacks were, of course, carried out, not only in Chittagong, but Cox's Bazar, Khulna, Chalna, etc.
Major Ziaur Rahman was somebody who you interacted with personally. He shared your tent. He shared a meal and a drink with you, perhaps all too frequently. Tell us about that interaction with somebody who came to define the Mukti Bahini and the freedom movement in what was then East Pakistan.
See, Zia was second in command of 6th East Bengal Regiment, which was located in Chittagong. And he's the one who went on the 25th or 26th of March, went on radio East Pakistan and declared an open rebellion, armed rebellion against the thing, because Mujib had been arrested the day before. On the 3rd of April, he crossed over to the Indian border from a East Pakistan town called Ramgarh. and its counterpart, which is divided by about a 50-meter wide stream of the Feni, was Sabroom, where we were located. For the next 3 months, he was with my battalion.
And you shared a tent with
Yeah,
him?
we shared a tent.
What kind of person was he? How was it like to
Now,
engage him?
this is interesting because everybody's observation was that he was so deeply involved with Pakistan that he suffered from, and I would say not suffering, but he was too emotionally involved. And it gave the impression that he was a withdrawn personality. This was perhaps, we didn't know it at that time, but he was aware that his wife was at that time taken in custody by the Pakistan Army. She was taken in custody by a person called Lieutenant Colonel Muhammad Taj, who was the chief of the East Pakistan, Eastern Command of the Pakistan Army. And she was there till the end of the war.
Right, so the very tense moments for him.
For him.
But I must ask you this, Wing Commander. Your dad wrote a famous letter to a very brave Pakistani commander who was inside the Jamalpur fort, saying that, look, you're surrounded. Tell us a little bit about that exchange between your old man and that Pakistani soldier, how that played out.
My father, Brigadier Hardev Clare, was had Bulbul Barar and the Marathas with him at that particular time, and they had surrounded Jamalpur when the enemy was there. So my father wrote a letter and sent it with a messenger, a Mukti Bahini man, to the Jamalpur fortress, Commander Colonel Sultan from 31 Baluch. Surrender or you will die. I have surrounded you from all round, and I have Muktis with me waiting to take you on. I have asked for 40 sorties tomorrow of napalm. Why do you want bloodshed on your hands? I will treat you well if you put up the flag. And look after my messenger who I am sending you. Sultan was a very brave and a fantastic officer. He wrote back to my father saying, thank you for your letter. I hope your messenger was looked after and enjoyed his tea. Give my love to the Muktis. What are you talking about 40 sorties? You can ask for many more. I shall not surrender. I'd like to see you with a pen instead of the sten you have so much mastery on. And he sent a bullet back to my dad. That was a very famous exchange of letter between two enemies facing each other. But a brave fighter he was. And he managed to escape from the Battle of Jamalpur. And later on, I was present when they both had a confrontation once again when he was a prisoner of war. He was very nervous when he came to meet my dad. But my father made him sit down and said, now why didn't you take heed of my letter? You had so many people who died. He had over 300 troops killed that day. He says, I didn't believe you one bit. But I admired your diction and I liked the way you wrote. And I knew that you were DS from Staff College.